This is part one of my Stranger Things diorama, and I'm going to be making Mike's basement, or at least it's going to be the main part of the build. For every project, I usually sketch out how I want it to look ahead of time, and it's very rough because I'm not great at drawing. Instead of this being a recreation of a particular scene or moment, it's going to be full of iconic objects from the series. So I'm kind of going for like a Where's Waldo vibe almost once it's done. And as you can see, I'm going to be expanding outside of the room. So there's going to be some small scenes on either side and on the back of the project as well. And I'm going to insert a picture here so you can see what the basement looks like if you're not familiar. As you can see in the reference photo, I'm going to be doing kind of the main like couch kind of corner TV area, and then the D&D table as well. And then the outside, I'm thinking of maybe the gate on this side. This side is going to be Vecna's clock, like the clock in the school wall. And then the back wall, I'm not sure what that's going to be yet. I have a few ideas, but then part of me kind of wants to wait until the new season comes out, and then maybe I pay homage to that on the back. Not really sure. But let's get started. We have to obviously build this thing, so stay tuned. I am using foam board for this project, and as you can see, I already measured out all of my pieces, and I am just cutting them out with an X-Acto blade. And I am not good at cutting straight lines, so I always have to use a ruler. I'm going to be cutting 2 of each piece and then gluing them together so that the project is a little bit sturdier. Foam board also has a tendency to bow, so gluing them together will help to prevent that. And once I get everything cut, I'm going to glue them together just using some Elmer's glue, and I'm going to weigh them down while they dry overnight. That step is very important to ensure they dry straight. And then once everything is dried and we are ready to go, I am just marking out where I want to put the walls. And I'm going to use a mixture of tacky glue and hot glue to glue these walls down, because the hot glue will bond them instantly, so I don't have to sit there and really hold them in place for too long. And the tacky glue will hold better in the long run. And as you can see, I am using the line that I drew as a guide to put my wall down, and then just sticking him in place. And then I'm going to pop on the back wall as well. I also forgot to mention that I did cut out the spaces for the windows, which is much easier to do when the pieces are flat. And as you'll see later, I do end up cutting through both pieces of foam board. So I put the couch and the chair where they're going to be, just to give you guys a better idea of the layout. Also adding in this table. This is not the one that I will be using, but it will be a similar size. Again, just kind of showing the layout of the space. And I'm going to be making these shelves here. As you can see in the reference photo, these are going to be the left corner of the room, and then also going to be making the other furniture like the little side tables and the TV stand. But before we get started on furniture, the first thing we have to do is wallpaper. So I got this graphic paper on Amazon. It's the closest match that I could find. And there's some wood paneling on the lower half of the wall. So I only need to cover about half the wall with the wallpaper. And I'm going to be using Yes Paste. This is my favorite glue for wallpapering because it's a stick flat glue. So it has like no moisture and won't cause any bubbling like a tacky glue or a Mod Podge might. And I also love it because you get a little bit of working time. As you can see, I kind of have to reposition my corner piece, and I'm able to do that because it doesn't dry instantly. And I do like to start with the corner pieces just to make it more seamless and realistic looking. And once I get it where I want it to be, I'm just going to smooth it out. And I do like to use this little roller tool. It's not really necessary, but I just feel like it's very satisfying and it really gets it on there. And then I just repeated the process with the rest of the pieces, and I need to cut out that window space. But now we can move on to the wood paneling. And for that, I'm going to be using this stuff called wood banding tape. It's basically what you would use to create edging for furniture. It's pretty thin, so you can easily cut it with an X-Acto blade, and
It's real wood. So this is what I use for all my wooden floors, and it looks really great. So highly recommend. I'm just using my easy cutter to cut the pieces that I measured. And based on the reference photo, the wood paneling pieces are different sizes. So I'm actually going to separate these into like 2 stacks, and half of them I'm going to cut into thinner strips, and the other ones I'm going to leave as is. And again, just having to use my ruler because I cannot cut a straight line on my own. And once I get them all cut out, I'm going to assemble the panels before I place them in the room. So as you can see, I've just glued everything onto some paper, and once they're dry, I can go ahead and paint them. Normally I would use a wood stain, but I don't have the right colors, so I'm just going to mix together some acrylic paint, and I'm going to water it down a little bit and use that like I would a wood stain. This is a really great like wood stain alternative. So I'm just painting it on, and then I'm going to take a paper towel and wipe away the excess, just like you would a wood stain. And I'm just going to repeat the process for all of the panels, and I'm also using that same color to paint some of the trim that's going on top of the wood panels. And again, just painting it on, wiping it away with the paper towel to create the stained look, and also going to do that with some baseboards. Once everything is dry, I can go ahead and add it to my room, and I'm going to be using some Fabri-Tac. This is a quick wrap glue, so it's going to, I believe you can use it for like any material, but it's going to take hold pretty instantly, which is great, so I don't have to sit there and hold these in place while they dry. It is very, very strong smelling, so it smells like acetone, so keep that in mind if you purchase it, but I do really like working with it. So I'm just sticking that panel in place, which is very satisfying because the room is really starting to come together. And just repeating the process with the rest of the wood paneling. And there it is. Now I can go ahead and add in my wood trim, which is going at the top of the paneling. Again, just using the same Fabri-Tac glue. And it's being a little bit finicky because, of course, it is. So just trying to have that in place. I also realized I forgot to pop in my windows, so I'm going to do that as well. And this window I do have to pop in before I add the rest of the wood trim. So getting that in there, finishing up the trim. And then before I do the baseboards, we have to add the carpet. So I cut a large piece of felt to size, and as you can see, I melted it. Hot tip, don't iron felt on high. That was an accident, but it's fine. Just using some Elmer's glue and spreading that around, and then I'm just going to position my felt on top of it. And there are some little gaps because of course there are, but our baseboards are going to cover that, and the furniture is going to be in front, so they'll be hidden and it'll be fine. So just using some 1, 2, 3 blocks to hold my baseboards in place. And once I get those in, the walls will be complete. And there's what it looks like. So now I'm just measuring out where I want the wall shelves to be. These are the corner shelves that we saw in the reference photo earlier, but I will show them again. There they are. So just some like L-shaped shelves in the corner. And I'm going to be using some basswood. I buy this on Amazon, and it's such a great material for miniature making because it's relatively inexpensive and it's very lightweight. It comes in all different sizes and thicknesses, and you can cut it really easily with an X-Acto knife. So I just measured out my shelves, as you can see, and going to cut those out. And once I'm done, I'm just going to give them a little bit of a sand. And I also got some little brackets. Well, they're not brackets, they're stair treads, I think they're called, but I couldn't find 112 brackets, so I think these are going to work just fine. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball where I want those to be on the shelves, but I'm going to glue them on like so. So now we can get to painting. I'm using my same kind of like faux wood stain vibe, just using a little bit of a darker brown and just painting all of those and wiping off the excess moisture. Very important you do this with a lightweight wood, otherwise it'll start bowing like crazy. And then once I'm done painting those, I'm going to paint the little brackets in black. And then once everything, well, I realized halfway through painting that I forgot to cut off the little curved part in the middle. And so I did that really quickly. And now that everything is dry, I can start figuring out where I want these to go because I want to make sure that they are evenly spaced. So I'm just kind of setting them up and figuring out where they're going to go. And then I can use a little bit of tacky glue and glue them on straight, which is a little bit of a challenge because they're a little flimsy, but it's fine. And then I'm just going to use the first shelf as a guide for all of the other shelves just to make sure the brackets are all in the same place. And then once those are dry, I can start positioning them in the room. So I'm just trying to gauge how much space I want between each shelf and where exactly they are going to go because once they're in, and I can't change my mind. So I am going to be using a little bit of Fabri-Tac because I really want a quick drying glue so I don't have to sit there and hold them in place. So as you can see, I popped the first one in and the brackets are giving me a little bit of a hassle. They keep wanting to pop up, but I'm just grabbing my tweezers and kind of aligning them until the glue is dry. And there's the second shelf, and he's bowing a little bit, but it's going to be fine. The shelves are going to be covered with a ton of stuff, so hopefully you won't even notice. But there are the final shelves, and I think they look pretty good. I mean, not bad. So now we can move on to some curtains. This is a pretty simple curtain making technique. I'm just using some off-white fabric and a dowel that I painted white. I just cut it to 2 little curtain rods, and I'm just going to set those aside and measure out my curtains. So I usually just double the width of the window. That way I know I have enough fabric for both curtains because you have to keep in mind that you're going to be like scrunching up the fabric. So they will end up being smaller than the size that you cut them, if that makes sense. So once I get the sizes I need, I'm going to do a very basic hem on these. Obviously, you can sew them, but gluing them is so much faster and easier. So obviously, you can use a fabric glue, but I'm just going to use some tacky glue. I'm just using my ruler just to kind of mark where I want to hem them, just to make sure that everything is uniform. And then I cut each piece in half. I forgot to do that earlier, so that I have 4 total. And then I'm going to use my tacky glue to just fold the edges over and create our hem. And just pressing it down with my fingers, and that's your hem. Super easy. And I'm cutting the corners off, which is just going to make the top and bottom a little bit less bulky when you go to hem those. As you can see, just folding the bottom down. And then when it comes to the top hem, I folded it over to create a little crease. And then I'm just taking my curtain rod and putting it right in the crease. And then I put some tacky glue and I folded it right over against the curtain rod so it is like flush, and adding a little bit more glue so it doesn't pop up, and just making sure it's really sealed in there. And then basically I'm just going to like scrunch up the fabric. Like I'm just slowly kind of pushing it towards one side of the curtain rod, and as I'm doing this, I'm kind of adjusting the fabric on the front, just kind of making little creases. And then once I like how it looks, I can move on to the other curtain. Again, just doing the same process, but on the opposite side. And yeah, it's a little bit finicky. You just kind of keep messing with it, kind of accentuating the creases in the front. And then once I'm happy with how it looks, I can move on. I just painted these tiny little pony beads white, and I'm just going to glue those onto the ends of the curtain rods. And there you have it. I glued them in place, and it's not too bad. Look, they're not amazing, but these are not the star of the show.
Okay, so this is the room so far. Um, Next, we are going to get started on all of the furniture for the room. So I will be making a lot of it. Some of it I did purchase, but mostly going to be making it. So stay tuned for part 2.